Hey guys, Drew here over at Rev Hiker Outdoors, and I'm going to continue the series on simple bushcraft things that you can do, simple projects. So I'm out here today, and it's cold, so I'm just going to do part of this video outside and part of it inside. What I want to do a video on today is a fishing spear. Now, quite obvious, I'm not doing any fishing right now in this weather, but this is a great winter project that you can do, that you get to try out when spring comes. And obviously don't violate any laws if you're not allowed to spearfish or any of that. You know, this is just for a survival thing, so I just want to make that clear. I'm not advocating that anyone goes out and spears a ton of fish illegally. That's just dumb, so don't do that. So fishing spear, the first thing I want to talk about is pole selection, you know, your actual spear. You're going to want a piece of green wood, green wood because they're better for fire hardening. Okay, so we are going to do that eventually. We will harden the tips in the fire. And you want a good piece of hardwood, and you know, rule of thumb is about your height, or more if you can find a good one that's straight enough. You don't really want it too much more than 2 inches in diameter, you know, at the thick end. So anyway, I found here, this is a good maple pole. This is going to work well for us. What I'm going to do is just cut it off a little over my head, and then I'll cut it off as close to the base as I can. And again, I'm trying to do all this stuff on limited tools and resources, so all I'm using is my Leatherman. So here we go. I'll cut it off the bottom first. Now I'll figure out how high you want it and just cut it off there. I'm going to give myself a little extra room in case I screw up the ends, which can happen. Okay guys, now what you're going to want to do while you're still outside is just debark this thing. Take off the outer bark, take off the inner bark, and just get it down to the bare wood. And after that, we'll take it inside, and I'll show you how to split the ends, how to tie them off, and do everything else. So stay tuned. While you're taking the bark off, if you got any little knobs like this, you want to smooth them out as much as possible. And you know, you might be saying, well, I don't need to take the bark off. Why are you taking that off? I like to take it off because eventually it's going to come off anyway and just get all rotty and nasty. So I just take it off, get it down as much as I can, and then, like I said, no matter what, you're going to take the bark off the end where you're going to do your fire hardening and making the points anyway. So just go ahead and get that all off. Okay, we're back. So like I told you in the last video, I went ahead and stripped all the bark off this. Now you guys can see not that straight in the back here. I'm not too worried about it because really this is just for a demonstration on how to make the tip. So I'm going to show you how to split it, where you should split it, and again, this is just how I do it. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my knife, and I'm just going to baton down to about here. Okay, the split will definitely go down further, and I'll show you how to take care of that in a little bit. But basically, you're gonna slide a little stick or some piece that you shaved off, and then you're gonna tie it in there. And I'm going to process some paracord to do that. I'm going to take the guts out of the paracord and I'm just going to use one of the single strands of the inner cords. So what you want to do is on this one, you can, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a slight curve this way. So I'm not going to split it like this. I'm not going to try to go with the curve. I'm going to go where it's straight and split it down this way, so that there's no hump. I won't have to worry about it walking off to one side or the other. I'm going to go as much with the grain on the curve as I can. So let's try to do that now. So what I'm going to use is, I told you I was using mostly my my Leatherman. I don't really want to baton with that too much. The blade is more of a fine blade, so I'm not going to break my Leatherman, even though I have, you know, they got the great warranty on it, and I think it would hold up to it. I've got this full tanks, good for batoning, so that's what I'm going to choose to do this time around. So I'll try to show you maybe a little closer up. So again, the curve goes this way, so I'm going to go against that, pretty much just like this. Try to find the center of that there, and I've just got this propped up against the wall, and then okay, biggest thing on this is to not go too fast, too far with it. All right, because this will go south on you in a hurry if you're not careful. Okay, so really take your time with this. No need to fly. Now, I know this looks pretty thick and you're thinking, you know, you're gonna use that, but once we sharpen these down, it's really, I think it'll be good. This will lighten out a lot. You're not going to have all this heft in here, and it'll pretty much be right where you want it. Now, another thing, I've seen these done with like 4 points. I'm only going to do 2, and the reason being for that is strength. If I start splitting this down and start getting it real small, I'm going to throw it a couple times, and if I have one bad throw and smack a rock, or I'm in shallow water, I'm going to snap the tine off, and it's going to be worthless. So that's not what I want to do. I don't want to, you know, blow it before I even get going. So I choose to just do 2, and keep it a little stronger. You know, I've done it before that way, and it's worked. So for me, that's all I'm going to need to do. So this is about where you're going to want your splits. Now what you'll do is you'll get these to the proper width when you carve them. So, but actually, yeah, okay, that'll work. So we've made the split. The next thing I want to do is I'm going to tie it off. Okay, I don't want this split to continue too awful far. So what I'm going to do for this is break down some paracord. Okay, so sometimes it can be a little bit of a pain, but you're just going to want to strip the casing off of this, and I like to just break it right down. Now, if you want to, you can totally use the full paracord, and that's fine. I might actually just use the casing for this bottom binding, but for all the fine work where I'm going to tie in our little splitter piece that I will trim down later, I'm going to use that on there. It's fine, it won't get in the way, it won't add, you know, too much weight. So what I'm going to do right now, just for the sake of showing you this, is I'm just going to use the casing to tie off the bottom so we can you know, get going on this. So what I'm going to do is tie a Canadian jam knot, and I'll try to show you that as best I can. So first off, I'm just going to try to get it somewhat close there. Just tie a regular knot in the end, and then you just do another overhand knot. Okay, So you should have something that looks similar to that, okay? And just leave a little bit of that out as you start the wrap. And you're going to want to start it, down here in this area. And as you wrap it, on the first one, just make sure you overlap that, and that'll kind of help lock it into place. Now, when you do this, you kind of want it as tight as you can, because you want this to stay together, and then you want it to kind of spread in this area. So I'm really gonna put several wraps on here, and I'm really gonna try to lock this down. And what I'm gonna use to kind of crank down on it is a toggle. So just take a piece of wood, and you can crank on that, really get it down tight. Okay, so that should be about good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave enough so that I have room to wrap my toggle. Okay, but I'm going to cut that paracord off the sheath, and I'll try to show you this without losing this piece of wood here. I'm going to try to hold this tight and at the same time pass it through this jam knot. Okay, so I've got that through, and then what you're going to do is just kind of tighten it down on here just a little bit, and then you just pull this back the way it came, tighten down on that, and this will lock itself off. So you've gone through this knot. Now you just take this and crank it, hard. Really give it some juice. That'll hold itself tight. And then if you ever want to replace this, you just take this tag end, pull it back the other way, and it'll loosen itself up. But for right now, this is going to hold right where I want it. It'll hold this good enough for me to split it down. So you can see that this has kind of closed itself up a little bit after that. So I'm just going to put my knife in there, and I'm going to try to pry it a little bit and slip this in behind it. So now we've got that. Now we just want to take this, our little splitter piece, and I'm just, I'm going soft and easy on it. I don't want to break it. Okay, so that's good enough. And like I said, you're going to want to leave a little bit of this sticking out, but I obviously did this, I put it in much larger at first. That way I can kind of have a grip on it as I'm trying to work it down in there. So anyway, that's a good spread. I could go a little further with it, but sometimes you need like a secondary wedge, and then this will drop down easier. So for me, that's a good enough spread, because what we're going to do now is, after we lash this in with some of the guts of the paracord, we're going to lash this all in here, make sure it doesn't slide up. Then we're going to begin to carve these down, and we're going to thin them out this way, we're going to thin them out this way, and we're going to put at least one barb about here and another down here. And you want to make those pretty sharp barbs. You want a lot of bite back in without thinning the material too much, so that it has a good bite and the fish isn't going to slip off. So anyway, what I'm going to do now is I'll tie this up, and basically I'm not going to show you the entire tying process. It's going to be similar to how we bound this, but there's, you wrap around here and, just you want to kind of loop over the top of these and then wrap underneath to make sure that this isn't going to wiggle up basically, and you're not going to lose this distance. Here's what I'll do. I leave a little bit out, as always, so I have something to tie off to. And I'm going to start with just, bear with me here, just a couple wraps right up underneath this. And you can't, you can crank on this somewhat, but you definitely don't want to crank on it like you are on the sheathing or something like that, because it's just not going to be as strong. Make sure I wrap around the tag end here, keep that in place. Okay, so now that I've got several wraps underneath it, I'm going to come, how do I show this? I'm going to come here, around, back down to the other side, around, back down like this, okay? I'm going to come all the way back around, do the same thing here. I'm just trying to keep everything nice and tight. And honestly, this will probably be enough. Okay, so after you get a few wraps on this, what I'm going to do here is I came around like this. I'm just going to hold underneath, and I'm going to tie a half hitch, just like that, go underneath it. Okay, and on the other side I'm going to hold a piece, come around, do another half hitch. Okay. And then what you can do to lock this off pretty easy is come through the center and just kind of bind it down on the sides a couple times. Come on, grab through. There we go. And then you can just do a simple knot to tie the tag end and this together. Doesn't have to be anything special. And then if you want, you can just use a match or a lighter or something and just burn these ends together. They will have some slippage just because it's nylon and it's so thin, so you don't have to go crazy with the knots here. Just do a couple overhand knots and that'll hold it. So this is where it's important to have a good knife, good sharp knife. Now you want to leave definitely some room at the base here. You don't want to thin it out so much. You do want it light, but you don't want it to be brittle or weak or feeble. So you'll thin it out plenty when you get towards the barbs. So anyway, I'll come back to you after I start carving the barbs, but just wanted to show you guys how you can start lightening up. Always check front to back, make sure I did have a curve to mine, so I'm going to straighten that out by taking a little more off of the tops of this side and out of the belly of this side. So I'll try to straighten that curve out as much as I can. Okay, so as you can see, I have I've carved these down into the barbs, and I went for 2 barbs on this. And while it is thin this way, I left it pretty wide this way. So there's definitely still some strength there. You can see, you can pinch these pretty good, and it's not flexing here, it's flexing in here. So the last thing I did is I went ahead and cut these down with my Leatherman saw. And when you do that, don't be tempted to get halfway through and then snap it, because with this, this maple's kind of stringy, so it'll break back in there and it'll mess up your binding and all that stuff. So anyway, that's what I did. Now, the more I thought about this as I was carving it, I left a lot of stock in here, because as much as this is quote unquote a fishing spear, and it would be good for that, it's also kind of like a survival spear. So this is kind of like a fishing / survival spear. If you're in a survival situation and you caught some animals in a snare or something like that, you could easily use this to finish the job, to take care of them, with some larger game. And so I left a lot of meat on here, not only to keep it strong when you're chucking it at fish, but for other animals as well. Now, if you wanted to kind of do the one where you're wading kind of chest deep and you've got your spear underneath the water and you're just poking, you'd obviously make one shorter with the 4 points coming off, split it 4 ways instead of 2, and that'd work fine. But this is for bigger things where you might be standing above on a limb and going down, so you want something a little more substantial because it's going to be striking the ground. So the last step that we're going to do, and I'll do this in a different video because I'm going to do it with a couple different tools that I make, but I'm going to do a video on fire hardening. So stay tuned and look for a video. I'll try to have that up in the next week or so here. But you definitely want to fire harden these. All right, it'll really put some strength in there. It'll keep it from getting stringy and keep these ends from blunting up so quick. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Stay tuned for my next videos and the rest in the series of Bushcraft Basics. Don't forget to thumbs up and subscribe. Thanks a lot, guys. So I just kind of plant this right where I want it. There we go.